It's been a couple of months since I've done one of these. It is my July and August lookbook. I sewed up quite a few things in July, but not so many in August. Although my weird reluctance to sew garments did mean that a lot of little tasks and jobs that I've been leaving around the sewing studio got finished because the procrastination was strong. The very first thing that I got done was my denim skirt, which is part of my Indulgent Make 9. It's the Vogue 9345 and I absolutely love how this has turned out. I knew I would. I have a couple of these now and I do wear them frequently. I decided not to fully line this one, which is kind of unlike me, but the only option I had for lining was bright red and I thought that might be a little bit too Christmas. But I did go for a nice bright rainbow bias binding on the inside to finish off all of the edges, and I love how that looks. I have worn this skirt a few times and I really love it, and I'm not ruling out making more of these in the future in different colours because they are just so versatile and work so well in my wardrobe. I do tend to make these 2 inches longer than the original pattern just so that it can be layered over the majority of my other pieces. I think this dress is actually slightly too long for it. I haven't tried it, but some of my other dresses will fit nicely under this so that they can be used as a top or shirt or blouse with a different style of skirt. Love this, very happy with this, have worn this already. Then I have the 3 pieces that I got made up from this bright grass green viscose jersey that I got from Minerva.com ages ago. They don't have this fabric in stock anymore, so I can't link to it, I'm afraid. The denim I also got from Empress Mills at a show ages ago, so I can't list to that either. Anything I can list to I will put in the description down below, so mostly patterns, sometimes fabrics if they're still available. First up we've got the 7289, is that right? I got it right, 7289 Shrug. This is the one with the full collar with the pleating in it. I usually take the pleating detail out because I tend to make these from thicker fabrics that it'd just be way too chunky with all of those pleats in it, but this very lightweight viscose jersey holds the pleats really well and I think looks really nice, so I'm very pleased with this and I have worn this one out a couple of times. Then we have a gable t-shirt with 3/4 length sleeves. Again, I absolutely love this t-shirt. I have a lot of them. I'm planning on making a lot more. It's a style and neckline that I really like, and I just vary the sleeve length depending on how much fabric I have. And then the final one is the Sewaholic Renfrew tee with the shorter sleeves because I was running out of fabric at this point. I think I had 3 meters of this jersey. I do really like this one, but I think out of the 2 t-shirts the gable boat neckline is my favorite. This is nice and I will wear this one, but this one probably be a lot more casual, whereas this one I would wear with the skirt or under some of my dresses, because I do like that under some of my shirt dresses you get the kind of like flash of colour at the neckline as well as in the sleeves. So very happy with all 3 of these. Next up we have the Wanted tee in a cotton jersey. It's an ivory colour and I bought a metre of this to use as the underlining for the 7319 dresses. I had enough left over to squeeze this t-shirt out after having made one of those dresses, and this was the only length of sleeve that I could get. This is okay. I'm not 100% sure that I love this. I'm not going to get rid of it. It is a very comfy t-shirt to wear. I like the cotton jersey being slightly more structured than the viscose jersey. I don't really like this neckline in that lighter fabric. I have made a few of those and they're okay, but I prefer a little more structure in my Wanted tees. I'm not sure that I love this one, but it's a really useful basic white or ivory t-shirt, so I'm not going to get rid of it, but it's not my favorite thing and it probably won't get worn out of the house very often, but it is very comfy, so it will get worn around the house. Next up we have a Vogue 9345 shirt with the leftovers from the Liberty Carline fabric that I used for an 8577. I managed to squeeze this shirt, a couple of scrunchies and a teeny tiny little bit of bias binding out of this fabric. That is all 5 meters fully used up. There were obviously like offcuts and scraps that weren't good for anything, which have gone into a recycling bag, but I'm so pleased that I was able to squeeze this out of the remnants of that fabric. It is something that I tend to do now when I do make 8577s with 5 meters of fabric. An extra little tie front shirt is usually possible from some of the offcuts, especially around the skirt pieces. I could possibly get an 8577 out of 4.5 meters of fabric, but I would much rather buy the 5 meters that allows me to cut out the 8577 comfortably and have enough leftovers to make something like this. I absolutely love this. I took it away with me when we went up to the Festival of Quilts and then over to Ipswich to see my friend. I have worn it and I will be wearing it again multiple times. It's absolutely gorgeous and I absolutely love this pattern. The Vogue 9345 is, in my opinion, very versatile as you guys have seen from all the waffling I did in this video about it. Next up is a 8577. This is the Buttermilk Anaconda Anthesis print. I have actually had this cut out for a while. I sewed up the Vogue 9345 shirts, the same one as you've just seen in the car line. I sewed that up first because it's a much quicker project than this very giant shirt dress, but I absolutely love how this has turned out. I am so pleased with it. I love an 8577. I think they're comfortable, I think they're stylish, they work for me for lots of different occasions. I can layer them up with t-shirts and jumpers for the cooler months, and I can just wear them as is for the warmer months. So yeah, 8577s are a definite staple in my wardrobe. I have a lot of them. I've done a full review video here. There's also a sew along on the channel for this particular dress if you would like to make one. They are fabric hungry. This does take a good 10 meters of fabric because it is fully lined. I prefer to fully line it because I like the extra floof that the skirt gets from fully lining it. You don't have to, and at least 2 of mine don't have the full skirt lining. They've just got the lining for the bodice. It's my third piece of Anaconda Anthesis sewn up. All I have left now is the Dawn colorway in the Cotton Lawn and the Candice Drill, which I will be working on over the autumn winter because all the blue fabrics are kind of the heavier weight pieces, so it's going to be an autumn winter project to get that Anaconda Anthesis collection. Again, how many videos can I link in 5 minutes? But yeah, I've put all the fabrics that I want to use for that collection into one video, and the blue ones will be coming up next. Then we had a bit of a heat wave and I wanted to make a second version of the McCalls 7945 dress. I did a red electric feathers one, which there is a sew along on the channel for. Again, I'll link that in the description down below. I've had a few fabrics over the years that I've wanted to make them from, but the beauty of this dress is that it is completely unlined. So the bodice front is lined, these 2 bodice pieces here, but there is a teeny tiny little facing at the back, which as you can see I used a dark red bias binding on and I really love how that looks. That's it. So it's a very minimal dress in layers of fabric, as we've just discussed, with 10 meters of fabric in that shirt dress, which means it's quite nice to wear in very hot weather. Also, it's not super fitted. It does for me have a very fitted bodice because I prefer that. It's kind of a trapeze shape, and then you add on these ties at the waistband in the front panel, this front section here, to give it some shape. If you want to, you can leave it completely as a trapeze, you can cinch it in quite tightly, or you can tie these in a fairly loose bow at the back just to give you a little bit of shaping. So it's really nice to wear when it's very hot. Most of the fabrics that I've picked over the years have been too light, as in the base colour is so light that they're almost sheer, and I would have had to have worn a slip underneath so that you wouldn't have seen my underwear, which kind of negates the point of a dress that has got one single layer of fabric. So when the very lovely Brie sent me 10 meters of this jungle print, which is from Spotlight and still available I believe, I knew, because this is also a very fabric hungry dress, I knew that this would be the perfect fabric to make into this particular pattern, and I'm really glad that I did. I've worn it out a couple of times in the very hot weather and it was glorious. This is a directional print, so it was a bunch of fun trying to cut things out and make sure that I didn't end up with anything in a weird place. I prioritized getting an elephant in the center. I think that's meant I've got an elephant actually on my butt, but you know what, that's fuller down there, whereas this, if I'd had half a face of something here, would have been very obvious. The 2 front bodice panels are actually cut on the bias, so I aimed for as little animals as I possibly could get. So I think this one is like butterfly, got a little toucan up here, a hummingbird or a parrot, and butterfly, and then this side we've got the back end of a toucan, side of a parrot, and a little bit of a flamingo at the front there. It was quite a challenge to try and make sure that I didn't end up with snarling panther boob, because there are snarling panthers on this fabric. If I can find one. Can I find a snarling panther? Here we go. So yeah, there are snarling panthers on this, as well as tigers and giraffes. I actually prioritized down the center front the flamingo, which wasn't where the fold line of the fabric fell. If you folded it selvage to selvage, I had to fold the fabric specifically over the flamingo, so that I ended up with him down the front. But I wanted something a little bit different because I didn't want to end up with elephants down the front as well as the back. So this is a really fun dress. It's lovely to wear. It's nice to swish about in. I absolutely love it, and I do want to make more. It is just very, very fabric hungry. I had 10 meters of this fabric, and I have a good 4.5 meters of the full amount of fabric left, and then I have some really good offcuts left as well, which I will be using for other projects. But yeah, it is a fabric hungry beast of a dress, especially if you have a directional print like this one. So it is something just to bear in mind. A couple of years ago, I went up to the Goldhawk Road and found some gorgeous viscose fabrics in, I think it was A1 Fabrics, that came in this ginger colorway, this blue colorway, and also a pink colorway. I bought 3 meters of all of them, thinking I was going to turn them all into eave dresses, which would have been very easy to do, but maybe a little bit boring. So instead of that, I've turned one of them into an eave dress, and then these 2 fabrics I've turned into these pleated and gathered skirts, which there is a tutorial for on the channel. Also 2 Vogue 9006 tops. Now, you've seen the blue one, I finished that a couple of months ago, but you haven't seen the ginger one yet. These skirts I got done on the 30th of July, just before we left to go up to the Midlands for the Festival of Quilts. I really like how these have turned out. I think this is a really interesting print in that it's quite large and bold print, but it's abstract enough that I think it actually works with lots of other prints. On one of the hangouts, I was wearing the 9006 top that I made from this fabric out along with this skirt with a big chunky brown belt, which I've used for the 12s for this, as well as the bright yellow shrug, and I love how that looked. I think this is actually quite versatile. I'm quite excited to try this blue one with the Anaconda and Thesis tie front shirt, maybe the ginger one. I kind of think that these are almost what I christen neutral print wise, because it's abstract enough that it's not anything particularly in your face, as in leaves or flowers or something like that. I mean, whilst it is repetitive and geometric, it's not something like a stripe or a polka dot or a check either. So yeah, I'm really pleased with these. I've styled both of these skirts with the one top that I made in August because it's really hot in here today, and I really didn't fancy putting the blue one on and then putting the ginger one on. But I also wanted to see what it would look like mixing the 2 prints together, or the 2 colorways of the same print together. I really like it. I think it will be interesting having these 4 pieces from the same fabric to interchange into the capsule collection that I'm building behind you, as well as wearing together to look like a dress, or wearing with the opposite color so that it looks almost like a dress but is different colorways. I'm pleased with these. I, as I say, had 3 meters of fabric of all of them, and I made scrunchies at the same time as I made all of the pieces up. I think they're going to be quite versatile and go quite well with things in my wardrobe when I do decide to wear separates, which we all know isn't that often, but it is nice to have something other than 3 eve dresses all the same print, because that would have been the other option, because that was what I had in mind when I bought the fabric. So yeah, happy with these. When I came back from the Festival of Quilts and seeing my best friend, I had a kind of like sewing block. I'm not at all sure what was happening, but I wasn't inspired or wanting to make anything at all, which was kind of annoying, but it did mean that I got a bunch of admin done, which is great because that does tend to pile up. It's not my favorite activity, so the procrastination meant that admin work got done. I also had a very large pile of pieces cut out, of which this dress and the final top that I got sewn in August were a part of. So when I finally got the sewing bug back, I came down and started working on this dress. It's the 5951 Butterick dress, which there is a sew along for on the channel. I absolutely love this dress. For this one, I've done the kind of like elbow length vintage style sleeves, so they have a lot of fullness up at the top. I quite like that. Again, I like sort of like adding volume in this area because I think it helps create the hourglass figure that I love. I also got scrunchies from this fabric sewn up when I did the top and the other dress that I had from this fabric earlier on this year. Like I say, I absolutely love this one. It's a really lovely quick dress to sew. Doesn't take too much fabric. I think it's about 2.5 meters if I want to put on these long sleeves, or I've got the little cap sleeves from the La Carla pattern which allow me to get it out of 2.25 meters of fabric, and not even necessarily overly wide fabric either. This took me 2 days to do. I had sewn the skirt up months previously when everything else got cut out, and I don't know why it all stalled, but the skirt had been hanging up for a while and it did drop on the bias, so I got everything leveled and hemmed. Hopefully it hasn't dropped again since. I will be finding out with you guys when I see the twirls of this, because the mirror I have down here doesn't quite do full length, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. So yes, fingers crossed I won't need to level the hem on this again, and I have done a good job the first time round. I am really enjoying buying that little bit of extra fabric. I had 6 meters of this, and it's meant that I got the 8177, the 9006, and now the 5951 out of that fabric. It's just so lovely having a print that I love in different options. So I have a top, I have an autumn winter appropriate dress, which is the one I'm wearing, and then I definitely have a spring summer dress, which is the strappy sundress that I made earlier this year. Very, very pleased with this. This is another 9006 Vogue top. You guys know I'm having a bit of a love affair with this year. It is a top that takes a very small amount of fabric that I really like, that I think suits me and is fairly easy to make. There's a full sew along for this one. I've also done a video talking you through making a silk one for my top tips and tricks for working with slippery fabrics like silk, or perhaps even like a lighter weight viscose like this one. The cutting out stage is the problematic stage. Ask me how, I know. I absolutely love how this has turned out. I really like it with the skirt. I think that looks gorgeous. I think this is also going to look great with the green skirt and a big chunky belt, boots, and a little jumper or a shrug, one of these shrugs over the top. I think it looks great with this one. I have a bunch of fabrics in my stash that I have a small amount of, like just about a meter or maybe a little bit more. This top does fit onto that because it is cut on the straight of grain, so there will be more of these being made up. I want to try something a little bit different for a top in the future where I have a little bit more fabric, and I'm going to put on the sleeves from the original pattern. Those sleeves are supposed to go on the bias cut version because there's 2 versions of this top. I have made that one, but the neckline is much wider and lower on that other bias cut top. I don't think I like that on me as much as I like this more closed in cowl neck that this top gives. I do think that if I put full sleeves on this, because this is a pull on top, I don't think I would be able to get it off once I'd managed to fight my way into it. So I'm going to do the thing that I do with the By Hand London Anna top, which again there's a sew along for, and I'm going to put the zip in so that the zip closes downwards, which will mean that it will be very easy to get into the top, put your arms through to the sleeves, and then zip it shut at the back. So it is definitely possible to put the longer sleeves onto this top if you want to. You just need to think about how you're going to get in and out of it. Love this top, love this fabric. Again, I finished off the scrunchies as I went along so that I didn't end up with a giant amount of scrunchies outstanding as I have done in the past. I'm very, very pleased with that. So that's the last piece of clothing that I got sewn in August. And then I was back in procrastination mode. A couple of hangouts ago, I got my box of scrunchies out and I went through and sewed up all the pinky toned ones, the light green and the cream ones. And there were 12 scrunchies in those categories. So I got those all done one Sunday afternoon with the Peeps. Once I'd got that top done, I then went back in and got the rest of the scrunchies out, which were all green and navy toned, and got those sewn. That took me an entire day and there were 22 in there. So there were 34 scrunchies that I'd cut out over the last 2 years and just not sewn up at the same time as I was sewing whatever piece of clothing was being made out of the corresponding fabric, which is absolutely daft and not something that I'm going to do again going forward. It's so lovely having that box completely emptied out and all complete, although now I don't know what to store in that box box. I do have an empty box to put things in, which is usually lethal and not something. I don't need more things, we all know that. Another project that I'd been procrastinating for the longest time was a panel, a quilting panel that Nimue sent me. She'd had some fabric that she needed to order or wanted to order in the UK, but they wouldn't send it out to Germany, so she asked if she could have it sent to me and I'd send it on to her, and I said yes. And she very kindly included a panel with lots of like sewing phrases on it, and then a coordinating panel the same size to back it with or make a quilt with. The minute I saw it, I decided on bunting for the sewing room, because whilst it's gorgeous and would make a great quilt, and I know Nimue has the same panel and will be making the quilt with hers, it's not the kind of quilt that would have ended up being used in the main house, because I'd have had to either buy a load more fabric for it to make it bed size, or it would have been a lap quilt, and you know, we just don't use those in the house. We have a lot of quilts. Mum is a quilter. There are many quilts floating around if we ever get cold. So I decided bunting was the way to go, and I really love how it's turned out. I used some black and white zebra bias binding to actually string the bunting along. There were 6 square panels and then 1 long rectangular panel at the top of the piece of fabric that Nimue sent me. So I turned that one into a little poster, as it were, by itself, and that now lives above the door to the sewing room, and then the bunting now lives along the top window right behind you guys, and it looks really lovely because it was just an empty white space before, and it's just now got some colour and some prettiness up there, and it's something that because I look out to the window every day, so it's something just lovely to have that little bit of the sewing room decorated. It's also made me realise that I have a couple of other surfaces in here that don't have things all over them, and now I want to make more things to put up on the walls. Although you guys do send me some lovely pieces, so there's a couple of embroidery hoops along here that you guys have sent to me, so things that you do send me get put up and displayed around the sewing room as well, and it's just so lovely to look up and be like, oh yeah, that came from that person, or that came from that person, or I did that. So I'm really pleased with that. And yeah, the garment making procrastination has meant that other jobs got done, which is wonderful because they've been outstanding for quite a while now. So yeah, 10 pieces of clothing sewn in July, 2 pieces of clothing sewn in August. Just a little bit of a difference. But out of all of them, which one is your favourite? I think for me it's a toss-up between the dresses. I love them all. This one specifically, but the jungle print one is just so epic, and I'm so glad I have another version of that pattern. And the Anaconda Anthesis 8577 is beautiful and I love it, so very happy with all of those. I love my green skirt. I love the pleated and gathered skirts as well. I do really like some of the green pieces of knitwear. I think the v-neck and the wanted square neck tee are my least favourite, but that's because I tend to prefer wearing woven pieces over knit pieces, and when I do wear knit pieces I tend to prefer wearing things like the gable tee over the v-neck. But that is just how I'm feeling at the moment, and I'd love to know what you guys think of all the pieces that you've seen so far today. Which is your favourite and why? Let me know in the comment section down below. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, you might want to check out this one here.